The notification appeared on my screen at exactly 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon. $45,000 in pending charges across 7 luxury travel vendors, all originating from an IP address I recognized immediately. It belonged to my sister Nicole. She had used my credit card to book what appeared to be the vacation of a lifetime, complete with overwater bungalows in Bora Bora, first-class flights for 2, a private yacht charter, and reservations at restaurants where a single meal costs more than most people's monthly rent. What Nicole didn't know was that I work as a financial fraud analyst at Sterling Financial Services. What she really didn't know was that I had frozen that card 30 minutes before the final authorizations could process. Sometimes the most devastating betrayals come wrapped in paradise brochures and champagne wishes. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. My name is Emma Walsh, and at 29 years old I had spent the last 6 years building a career on identifying patterns that other people miss. Financial fraud leaves fingerprints everywhere if you know where to look. Transaction timestamps, IP addresses, authorization codes, merchant category codes, even the sequence of purchases tells a story about intent and planning. Every day I analyze thousands of data points to protect our customers from identity theft, account takeovers, and unauthorized charges. The irony of discovering my own sister had committed fraud against me using the very systems I helped design wasn't lost on me. Neither was the professional advantage it gave me in stopping her. The charges had started appearing 3 days ago, small at first. A travel insurance policy for $8,000. Then a deposit to Elite Destinations, a luxury travel agency in downtown Austin that caters exclusively to clients who consider money no object. Then the flood began. Airfare deposits, hotel reservations, excursion bookings, spa packages, restaurant prepayments. Each charge bore the same digital signature, processed from Nicole's apartment in the Domain, Austin's most exclusive shopping and residential district. She hadn't even tried to hide it. Why would she? Nicole had always believed the rules didn't apply to her, that her charm and our mother's endless forgiveness would smooth over any consequence. Our father had died 8 months ago after a sudden heart attack. He was 59, healthy by all appearances, gone within hours of his first symptoms. The grief had shattered our family in different ways. Mom retreated into silence and routines, going through motions without really living. I threw myself into work, finding comfort in the predictability of numbers and systems. Nicole had transformed her mourning into content, posting tearful Instagram stories about loss and resilience that somehow always included perfectly lit photos and affiliate links to grief journals and self-care products. Her followers ate it up. Engagement soared. Brand deals multiplied. She had monetized our father's death with the same casual efficiency she applied to everything else in her manufactured life. But lately the algorithm had turned against her. Engagement was dropping. Followers were plateauing. The aspirational lifestyle content that had built her platform was losing traction as audiences grew tired of influencers flaunting wealth during economic uncertainty. Brand partnerships were drying up. I knew this because I still followed her account, watching from a distance as the cracks in her perfect facade grew wider. What I hadn't realized until this moment was how desperate she had become to maintain the illusion. The vacation she had booked wasn't just extravagant. It was specifically designed for maximum social media impact. The resort in Bora Bora was the same one where 3 major celebrities had recently stayed, generating millions of impressions across platforms. The private yacht charter included a professional photographer and videographer. The itinerary read like a greatest hits compilation of viral travel content. Sunset champagne toasts, swimming with sharks, private island picnics, underwater dining experiences. Nicole hadn't booked a vacation. She had booked a content creation opportunity that would supposedly revitalize her flagging career and restore her relevance in an increasingly crowded digital landscape. She had funded this desperation play with my credit card. The same card I had given her access to years ago during a family emergency, back when Dad was still alive and our relationship hadn't yet curdled into something toxic and transactional. I had forgotten to remove her as an authorized user after that crisis passed. That old authorization, gathering digital dust in our account settings, had become the key to her latest scheme. I sat at my desk in the fraud analytics department, surrounded by 3 monitors displaying transaction data, geolocation maps, and merchant verification systems. My cubicle overlooked downtown Austin from the 32nd floor, glass and steel stretching toward a cloudless summer sky. The air conditioning hummed steadily, keeping the Texas heat at bay while I made a decision that would fracture what remained of my family. I could call Nicole right now. Confront her privately. Demand she cancel everything and hope Mom never found out. That was what the old Emma would have done, the one who smoothed over Nicole's messes and absorbed her chaos to keep the peace. But something had shifted in me since Dad died. Maybe it was watching Mom slowly discover that the man she had loved for 35 years had left her more financially stable than she realized, only to see Nicole immediately start circling that inheritance like a shark scenting blood. Maybe it was the accumulated weight of a lifetime of being the responsible one, the boring one, the one who cleaned up while Nicole collected praise for simply existing beautifully. Maybe it was professional pride, the knowledge that I had dedicated my career to stopping exactly this kind of theft, and letting it slide when it happened to me would make me complicit in my own victimization. I pulled up our internal case management system and created a new file. Suspected fraud. Unauthorized use by known party. Estimated loss $45,000. I began documenting everything with the same methodical precision I applied to stranger cases. Screenshots of transactions. IP address logs. Timestamps showing the purchases were made while I was physically at work, my own phone's location data proving I couldn't have authorized them. Email confirmations forwarded to an address Nicole had created that was one letter different from mine, a classic misdirection technique. She had planned this carefully, or at least as carefully as someone who believed they were smarter than the systems designed to catch them could plan. The beautiful thing about financial fraud is that it generates evidence automatically. Every swipe, every authorization, every merchant interaction creates a permanent record. Nicole thought she was booking a dream vacation. What she was actually doing was building an irrefutable case against herself, one transaction at a time. The digital breadcrumbs led directly to her device, her location, her intent. She had left a trail so obvious that even a junior analyst could follow it, and I was far from junior. I navigated to the account controls and found the card she had used. With 3 clicks I initiated a temporary freeze, a standard security measure when fraud is suspected. The authorization held, but the card became unusable for new transactions. Any pending charges that hadn't fully processed would begin declining. Any reservation deposits that required final confirmation would fail. The carefully constructed house of cards Nicole had built would start collapsing within hours as travel vendors attempted to verify payments and found the funding source suddenly unavailable. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom asking if I was coming to Sunday dinner. Nicole would be there, she added, mentioning it casually as if my sister's presence was an incentive rather than a complication. Mom still didn't know what Nicole had become, or maybe she knew and couldn't bear to acknowledge it. Patricia Walsh had spent 35 years married to a man who solved problems quietly and expected his daughters to handle their own affairs with similar discretion. She didn't do confrontation. She didn't do ugly truths. She did casseroles and photo albums and pretending everything was fine until it actually became fine through sheer force of determined ignorance. Sunday dinner was 4 days away. By then Nicole would have received multiple notifications about failed payments. She would be scrambling to understand why the cards suddenly stopped working, why her picture-perfect vacation was evaporating before her eyes. She might even suspect I had discovered her theft. What she wouldn't suspect, couldn't possibly anticipate, was that I had no intention of confronting her privately or sweeping this under the family rug where Mom's feelings could remain protected and Nicole's consequences could remain theoretical. I had spent 6 years learning how financial criminals think, how they justify their actions, how they exploit trust in systems and human reluctance to believe that someone we love could deliberately harm us. Nicole had stolen from me, yes, but she had also stolen my professional credibility by using insider access I had granted her in good faith. She had weaponized family trust. That required more than a private conversation and a promise to do better. That required documentation, consequences, and a kind of justice that wouldn't evaporate the moment Mom's disappointed face made Nicole cry pretty tears and promise she had just made a terrible mistake. I opened a new browser tab and began researching Marcus Chen, an attorney whose name kept appearing in financial fraud cases throughout Travis County. His specialty was family financial abuse, the kind of theft that happened between relatives who exploited legal access for illegal purposes. His firm's website showed a middle-aged man with sharp eyes and a reputation for taking cases other attorneys considered too messy or emotionally complicated. He didn't just win judgments. He restored agency to victims who had been gaslit into believing that family loyalty meant accepting victimization. Before I could second-guess myself, I filled out the contact form. Brief description of the situation, estimated damages, request for consultation. The words felt clinical and cold, reducing my sister's betrayal to billable hours and case strategy. But clinical and cold were exactly what this situation needed. Emotion had protected Nicole her entire life. Facts would be her undoing. The response came faster than expected. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. An automated reply confirming receipt, followed 20 minutes later by a personal email from Marcus himself. He had reviewed my preliminary information and wanted to meet as soon as possible. His message included a single line that made my decision feel less like betrayal and more like long overdue accountability. Family theft cases require swift action before assets can be hidden or dissipated. The longer you wait, the harder recovery becomes. I scheduled the consultation for tomorrow morning before my shift started. Then I went back to my monitors and continued documenting everything, building the foundation of a case that would eventually expose Nicole's fraudulent paradise for exactly what it was. Theft wrapped in wanderlust and filtered selfies. My sister thought she had found an easy target in my forgotten card authorization and Mom's recent inheritance. She had actually handed me everything I needed to dismantle the carefully curated illusion she had spent years constructing. The sun was setting over Austin, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. Somewhere across town Nicole was probably editing photos for tomorrow's post, selecting the perfect filter to make her manufactured life look even more desirable. She had no idea that her entire world was about to collapse under the weight of her own digital footprints. The vacation would never happen. But the reckoning was already underway. The consultation with Marcus Chen happened in a glass-walled conference room on the 19th floor of a building that smelled like expensive leather and quiet competence. He was younger than his website photo suggested, maybe 45. With the kind of focused attention that made you feel like your problem was the only one that mattered in that moment. I had brought printed copies of every transaction, a timeline I had constructed showing the pattern of charges, and screenshots of Nicole's Instagram stories where she had been dropping hints about an upcoming trip that would change everything for her brand. Marcus spread the documents across the mahogany table with practiced efficiency, his eyes moving rapidly across the data. He didn't speak for almost 3 minutes. Just absorbed information with the speed of someone who had seen variations of this story dozens of times before. When he finally looked up, his expression was a mixture of professional interest and something that looked almost like sympathy. Your sister is either remarkably arrogant or remarkably stupid. Possibly both. He tapped one of the transaction records. She used her own IP address, her own email variations, and she's been publicly teasing the trip on social media. This isn't sophisticated fraud. This is someone who genuinely believes they won't face consequences. That's Nicole, I said. She's spent her entire life having consequences dissolved by charm or our mother's intervention. Dad used to call her Teflon because nothing ever stuck to her. Marcus pulled out a yellow legal pad and began making notes. Tell me about the family dynamics. How your parents treated you both. Why you think your mother will react when this becomes public. I spent 20 minutes explaining our family history. How Nicole had been the beautiful one, the charismatic one, the one who could walk into a room and make everyone orbit around her gravitational pull. How I had been the smart one, the reliable one, the one who got praise for being low maintenance and not causing problems. How Dad had loved us both but had clearly enjoyed Nicole's company more, the way she made him laugh and feel young. How Mom had built her entire identity around being the mother of someone special, and Nicole's social media success had validated that investment in ways my stable career never could. After Dad died, Nicole's content shifted. She started posting about grief and healing and finding yourself after loss. The engagement was incredible. People connected with her vulnerability. What they didn't see was how she had asked Mom for money 3 times in the first month, always with some urgent need that coincidentally aligned with a brand opportunity. Mom gave it to her every time. She couldn't see that Nicole was monetizing our family tragedy. Marcus wrote something on his pad. And your mother received life insurance after your father's death? $500,000. Plus the house is paid off and Dad had a decent retirement account. Mom's comfortable for the first time in her life. She doesn't have to worry about money. I watched his expression carefully. Nicole has been circling that money since the day the check cleared. Has your sister asked your mother for funding directly? Not that I know of. But she's been doing this thing where she mentions financial stress in front of Mom. Casual comments about how hard it is to maintain her lifestyle, how brand deals aren't what they used to be, how she might have to get a regular job soon. She says it like it's a joke, but the implication is clear. She's softening Mom up for a bigger ask. Marcus set down his pen. Here's what I'm seeing. Your sister committed clear financial fraud by using your card without authorization. The amount exceeds felony thresholds in Texas. But more concerning is the pattern this represents. She's targeting family assets systematically. First your card, likely as a test to see if she could get away with it. If this had worked, if you hadn't caught it, what do you think her next move would have been? The question landed like a physical weight. Mom's accounts. She still has some joint access from when she was helping Dad with bills before he died. Mom never removed her because she trusted Nicole to be responsible. Exactly. Marcus leaned forward. This isn't just about recovering $45,000 or punishing your sister for fraud. This is about protecting your mother from an escalating pattern of financial exploitation. If we don't intervene now, definitively and publicly, your sister will continue targeting family resources until there's nothing left. I had known this intellectually, but hearing Marcus say it out loud made it viscerally real. Nicole wasn't just stealing from me. She was warming up for something bigger, using my card as practice before moving on to Mom's substantially larger assets. The vacation wasn't an end goal. It was a proof of concept. What do we do? I asked. Marcus pulled out another folder. First, we file a police report. Financial fraud over $30,000 is a state jail felony in Texas. That creates an official record and starts a criminal investigation. Second, we send a cease and desist letter to your sister, informing her that we have documented her fraud and demanding immediate cessation of any access to family financial accounts. Third, we arrange a meeting with your mother to discuss removing your sister's access to any joint accounts or authorizations. Mom will be devastated. She'll think I'm destroying the family. Your sister already did that when she decided theft was an acceptable way to fund her lifestyle. Marcus's voice was gentle but firm. I know this feels like betrayal. But enabling someone's criminal behavior isn't love. It's complicity. And if your mother loses her financial security to your sister's schemes, who do you think will be expected to fix it? Who will be blamed for not stopping it when you had the chance? He was right. I had spent my entire life being the responsible one, cleaning up messes and absorbing chaos. If I walked away from this, if I let Nicole's fraud slide to preserve some false sense of family harmony, I would be setting Mom up for a much larger disaster down the road. And when that disaster arrived, when Nicole had drained accounts and maxed out credit lines and left Mom financially vulnerable, everyone would ask why I hadn't done something sooner when I had all the evidence and professional expertise to intervene. I'll file the police report today. My voice was steadier than I felt. What happens after that? Marcus smiled slightly. After that, we wait for your sister to make her next move. Because she will. People like Nicole don't respond well to being told no. She'll try to manipulate, threaten, turn your mother against you. She'll claim you're jealous, vindictive, trying to ruin her career. She'll make herself the victim in a story where she's actually the perpetrator. We need to be ready for that. He pulled out his phone and began typing. I'm going to connect you with Jordan Hayes, a forensic accountant who specializes in family financial cases. Jordan can analyze all your family accounts, looking for any other irregular transactions or access points your sister might exploit. We need a complete picture before we confront this directly. The police report took 3 hours to file. The detective assigned to the case was a woman in her 50s named Rita Campos who had clearly dealt with family financial crimes before. She listened to my explanation without judgment, took copies of all my documentation, and asked pointed questions about Nicole's access to other family resources. When I mentioned Mom's recent inheritance and Nicole's remaining authorizations, her expression tightened. This pattern is common in adult child financial abuse cases. Detective Campos made notes in her file. An aging or recently widowed parent with new financial resources becomes a target for their own children. The victims often don't report it because they can't believe their own child would steal from them. By the time they accept what's happening, significant damage has already been done. My mother isn't elderly or incompetent. She's only 58. Doesn't matter. Grief makes people vulnerable. Isolation makes them dependent. Your sister is exploiting a window of emotional weakness. The detective looked up from her notes. We'll investigate the fraud charges you've reported, but I want you to consider filing for a protective order that prevents your sister from accessing your mother's accounts. Can I do that? Mom would have to request it herself, wouldn't she? Normally, yes. But if we can demonstrate a pattern of financial exploitation and your mother is in a vulnerable state due to recent bereavement, a judge might grant a temporary order pending a full hearing. It's a long shot, but given the amounts involved and your sister's apparent planning, it's worth pursuing. I left the police station with a case number and a growing sense that I had set something in motion that couldn't be stopped or controlled. This wasn't just about recovering money anymore. It was about dismantling Nicole's entire approach to relationships and resources. It was about forcing accountability on someone who had never faced meaningful consequences for anything. Jordan Hayes turned out to be a sharp-eyed woman in her 30s who dressed like she was perpetually ready for a court appearance. We met at a coffee shop near my office the next morning. She had already reviewed the documents Marcus sent and had begun preliminary research into publicly available financial records. Your sister's LLC is interesting. Jordan pulled out her laptop. She registered it 6 months ago as a business entity for her influencer activities. But the financial filings show almost no legitimate business expenses. What I do see are personal purchases categorized as business costs. Rent, car payments, dining, travel. She's been running personal expenses through the LLC to create tax deductions. Is that illegal? It's tax fraud if she's claiming personal expenses as business deductions. Jordan turned the screen toward me. More importantly, it shows a pattern of financial dishonesty. She's comfortable manipulating systems and misrepresenting transactions. Your credit card fraud isn't an isolated incident. It's consistent with how she approaches money generally. Jordan walked me through a financial analysis that revealed Nicole's entire lifestyle was smoke and mirrors. The luxury apartment was beyond her actual means. The designer clothes she featured in posts were often borrowed from brands for promotional purposes then returned. The restaurants and travel she showcased were sometimes comped in exchange for exposure. The image of wealth she projected was largely fabricated, held together by credit and the hope that her follower count would eventually translate into sustainable income. She's been living on borrowed time and borrowed money. Jordan closed her laptop. The vacation she tried to book on your card? That was probably her last desperate attempt to create content that could revive her engagement numbers and attract new brand deals. She was betting $45,000 of your money that she could manufacture enough viral moments to save her dying career. The realization was both sad and infuriating. Nicole hadn't stolen from me out of malice or even entitlement. She had stolen out of desperation, out of the terror of watching her carefully constructed identity crumble as algorithms changed and audiences moved on. She had built her entire sense of self on being desirable, enviable, successful. Without the external validation of followers and likes, she didn't know who she was. So she had committed fraud to maintain an illusion that was already dissolving. But understanding her motivation didn't excuse the theft. It didn't change the fact that she had looked at my financial resources and her mother's grief-stricken vulnerability and decided both were acceptable collateral damage in her quest to remain relevant. Desperation might explain her choices, but it didn't justify them. Sunday dinner was approaching. Nicole would be there, still unaware that I knew about the fraud, that police were investigating, that her access to family money was about to be permanently severed. Marcus had advised me to say nothing until after we had all our pieces in position. "Let her think she's getting away with it," he said. "Desperate people make mistakes when they think they're safe." So I would go to Mom's house. I would sit across the table from my sister. I would eat casserole and pretend everything was fine while knowing that the foundation beneath Nicole's entire world was already cracking. The vacation she had stolen for would never happen. But the reckoning was just beginning. Sunday arrived with the oppressive heat that makes Texas summers feel like punishment. I drove to Mom's house in Cedar Park with my windows down, letting the hot air whip through the car because the air conditioning felt too controlled, too comfortable for what I was about to do. The neighborhood looked exactly as it had for 20 years, modest ranch houses with manicured lawns and basketball hoops in driveways. Dad had bought this house when I was 9, proud of the good school district and the quiet streets where kids could ride bikes without supervision. Nicole's white Range Rover was already parked in the driveway, immaculate and gleaming despite the dust that coated everything else. She leased it, I knew, paying nearly $1,000 a month for the privilege of looking successful. The vanity plate read NICNFLUNCE, a piece of personal branding that had probably seemed clever when she ordered it but now just looked desperate. Mom answered the door wearing Dad's old university sweatshirt, oversized and faded. She had lost weight since the funeral, her frame swimming in clothes that used to fit. But her smile was genuine when she saw me, the kind of uncomplicated affection that made what I was planning feel like a betrayal even though I knew it wasn't. "Emma, honey." She pulled me into a hug that smelled like lavender and old grief. "Nicole's in the kitchen. She brought wine." Of course she did. Nicole always brought wine or flowers or some small gesture that cost just enough to seem thoughtful but not so much that it cut into her actual budget. She was a master of performative generosity, of giving just enough to maintain the appearance of thoughtfulness while taking substantially more when no one was watching. I found her at the kitchen island, arranging cheese and crackers on one of Mom's good serving platters. She looked camera-ready as always, hair in perfect beach waves, makeup subtle but expertly applied, wearing a flowing sundress that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. When she saw me, her face lit up with what looked like genuine pleasure. She came around the island for a hug, and I forced myself to return it, to act normal, to pretend I didn't know what she had done. "You look tired." "Work been crazy?" "The usual." I kept my voice neutral. Fraud cases, account reviews, the exciting life of financial analysis. Something flickered across her face, too quick to identify. "God, I don't know how you do it. Staring at spreadsheets all day would make me want to die." She poured 3 glasses of wine, red and expensive looking. "I brought a Malbec. That sommelier I featured last month sent me a case." Everything in Nicole's life was transactional. The sommelier sent wine because she had tagged his restaurant in a post, generating exposure that translated to reservations. The cheese she was now artfully arranging had probably been gifted by a specialty shop hoping for a mention. Even this family dinner was content, raw material she would mine for relatable moments about grief and sisterhood that her followers would consume and validate with hearts and comments. Mom joined us in the kitchen, and for a few minutes we achieved something that resembled normalcy. We talked about Mom's garden, about the neighborhood book club she had finally joined, about a trip she was considering to visit her sister in Colorado. Nicole dominated the conversation as she always did, telling elaborate stories about photo shoots and brand meetings and minor celebrity encounters that may or may not have actually happened the way she described them. "I'm thinking about pivoting my content strategy." Nicole refilled her wine glass. "The lifestyle space is so oversaturated now. I need something to differentiate myself, to stand out from all the other influencers doing the same beach sunset champagne content. What did you have in mind? Mom asked, because she always encouraged Nicole's dreams no matter how impractical they were. Travel content, but elevated. Not just pretty pictures, but real adventure. Exotic locations, unique experiences, the kind of trips that most people only dream about. Nicole's eyes were bright with enthusiasm that I now recognized as desperation. I'm actually planning something major for the fall. Bora Bora, private yacht, the whole luxury experience. It's going to completely transform my brand. My stomach tightened. She was still planning to go. She still thought the vacation was happening, that the bookings would somehow magically process despite the frozen card. Either she hadn't received the failure notifications yet, or she was so deep in denial that she couldn't process the reality that her plan had already collapsed. That sounds expensive. I kept my tone casual, curious rather than accusatory. It's an investment in my career. Brand deals follow content quality. If I can deliver next-level travel content, the sponsorships will come. Nicole looked at Mom. I've been so stressed about funding it, trying to figure out how to make the numbers work without completely draining my savings. There it was. The setup. The casual mention of financial stress designed to trigger Mom's protective instincts. I watched Mom's face soften with concern, watched her start to formulate an offer of help. This was Nicole's pattern, her manipulation blueprint. Create a problem, express stress about solving it, wait for Mom to volunteer a solution that involved her wallet. Before Mom could speak, I cut in. How are you funding it? The bookings alone must be tens of thousands of dollars. Nicole's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. I have some savings. Plus I'm hoping to get partial sponsorship from a few travel brands. She waved her hand dismissively. It'll work out. It always does. Does it? The question came out sharper than I intended. Because from where I sit, your engagement numbers have been dropping for months. Brand deals aren't what they used to be. How exactly is spending $45,000 on a vacation going to solve that problem? The kitchen went silent. Mom looked confused, uncertain about the tension that had suddenly materialized. Nicole's expression cycled through surprise, anger, and calculation before settling on hurt innocence. Why are you being like this? I'm trying to salvage my career, and you're sitting here judging my choices like you always do. She turned to Mom. See? This is why I don't talk to Emma about my work. She doesn't understand creative industries. She thinks everything should be safe and practical and boring. I understand theft. The words were out before I could stop them, cold and clear in the suddenly tense kitchen. I understand fraud. I understand using someone else's credit card without permission to fund your content creation fantasies. Nicole's face went white. Mom looked between us like she had stumbled into a conversation in a language she didn't speak. What are you talking about? Nicole's voice was steady, but I could see her hands trembling slightly as she set down her wine glass. I pulled out my phone and opened the document folder where I had stored screenshots of every transaction. $45,000 in charges to my credit card over the past week. Bora Bora Resort, first-class flights, private yacht charter, luxury excursions. All booked from your IP address, with confirmations sent to an email address you created that's one letter off from mine. Want to explain that? Mom made a small sound of distress. Nicole's calculated expression shifted into something uglier. You gave me authorization to use that card years ago. For emergencies. When Dad was in the hospital that time. Nicole's voice gained strength as she constructed her defense. This is still a valid authorization. I didn't steal anything. I used access you provided. For a medical emergency, not a luxury vacation. And you know it. Prove it. Nicole crossed her arms. Prove that I didn't have permission. We're family. We share resources. Just because you're uptight about money doesn't mean I committed fraud. I already did prove it. I filed a police report 3 days ago. Detective Rita Campos is investigating. I showed her the transaction records, the IP logs, the email confirmations. She agreed that this constitutes financial fraud under Texas law. Unauthorized use exceeding $30,000 is a felony. The color drained from Nicole's face completely now. Mom gasped, her hand going to her mouth. You called the police on your own sister? Nicole's voice cracked with what sounded like genuine shock. Over money? Over a misunderstanding about a credit card? This isn't a misunderstanding. This is theft. You stole from me to fund a vacation you can't afford because your career is failing and you're desperate to create content that might save it. I kept my voice level, factual. And it's not just about the money. It's about the pattern. The LLC you use to run personal expenses as business deductions. The way you've been circling Mom's inheritance since Dad died. The systematic exploitation of family trust for your personal benefit. Mom found her voice finally, small and bewildered. Nicole, is this true? Did you use Emma's card without asking? Nicole's eyes filled with tears, and I watched her shift tactics with the practiced ease of someone who had spent a lifetime getting out of consequences through emotional manipulation. Mom, I made a mistake. I was stressed and desperate and I thought Emma wouldn't mind because we're family. I was going to pay her back once the brand deals came through. I never meant for this to become such a huge thing. She turned those tear-filled eyes on me. Emma, please. You're going to destroy my life over this. A police record would ruin everything. I'd lose sponsors, followers, everything I've built. Can't we just handle this privately? I'll pay you back, I swear. With what money? You're broke. Your lifestyle is entirely fabricated. The apartment you can't afford, the car you're leasing, the designer clothes you borrow and return. None of it's real. I felt something hard and certain settling in my chest. And I'm done enabling your delusion. I'm done watching you manipulate Mom and exploit family loyalty while you systematically burn through every resource you can access. You're jealous. Nicole's tears evaporated as quickly as they had appeared, replaced by cold fury. You've always been jealous that people actually like me, that I have a life that isn't just spreadsheets and compliance reports. You can't stand that I'm successful and interesting and you're just boring Emma who nobody notices. Mom stepped between us, her hands raised like she could physically stop the confrontation. Stop it, both of you. Nicole, if you used Emma's card without permission, that's wrong and you need to make it right. Emma, she's your sister. Calling the police seems extreme. It's not extreme. It's appropriate. I looked at Mom, seeing the denial and discomfort in her eyes. Nicole has been escalating for months. This isn't about one vacation. It's about protecting you from being her next target. Nicole laughed, sharp and bitter. Protecting Mom? From me? Emma, you're delusional. I would never hurt Mom. You already are. Every time you hint about financial stress in front of her, you're manipulating her into offering help. Every time you accept money from her for your fake emergencies, you're exploiting her grief. I pulled out another document, this one from Jordan Hayes' financial analysis. You've received over $30,000 from Mom in the past 6 months. Rent help, car payment emergencies, business expenses. None of it was real need. All of it was you treating Mom's inheritance like your personal fund. Mom's face crumpled. Nicole, you told me you needed that money. You said you were struggling. I am struggling. Nicole's voice rose to a near shout. My entire career is collapsing and nobody cares. You both just want me to get some soul-crushing office job and give up on everything I've built. Well, I won't. I've worked too hard to let it all disappear because Emma decided to be vindictive. This isn't vindictive. This is consequences. I gathered my phone and my bag. The police investigation is ongoing. Marcus Chen is my attorney. If you try to access any more family accounts, you'll face additional charges. And Mom, I need you to remove Nicole's authorization from any joint accounts or credit cards. Today. Mom looked stricken. Emma, please. Let's talk about this calmly. We're past talking. I headed for the door. Nicole committed a felony. Either she faces legal consequences or she learns that family means she can steal without accountability. I won't be part of teaching her that lesson. I left them there in the kitchen, Mom crying quietly and Nicole's rage following me out the door like heat. My hands were shaking as I started the car. The Sunday dinner I had dreaded was over, but the real confrontation was just beginning. Nicole now knew I was serious. She knew the police were involved and attorneys were engaged. She would fight back with everything she had, and everything she had was manipulation, tears, and Mom's inability to believe her golden child could be genuinely destructive. But I had something Nicole didn't. I had evidence, documentation, and the professional knowledge to see this through to the end. The vacation would never happen. The reckoning had arrived. The fallout arrived faster than expected. By Monday morning my phone was flooded with text messages from relatives I hadn't heard from in months, all with variations of the same theme. How could you do this to your sister? Family doesn't call the police on family. Nicole made a mistake, but you're destroying her life. The orchestration was obvious. Nicole had spent Sunday evening after I left spinning her version of events to every family member who would listen, painting herself as the victim of my cruelty and vindictiveness. My cousin Jennifer called at 7 in the morning, her voice tight with disapproval. Emma, I just talked to Nicole and she's devastated. She made a mistake with a credit card but you filed criminal charges? That's so extreme. She's your sister. She stole $45,000, Jennifer. That's not a mistake. That's a felony. But she's family. Jennifer said it like that explained everything, like shared DNA created a shield against consequences. Can't you just work this out between yourselves? Does it have to involve lawyers and police? Would you feel the same way if she stole from you? I was too tired for diplomacy. If Nicole drained your bank account to fund a vacation, would you just forgive it because she's family? The line went quiet for a moment. That's different. It's not different. It's identical. The only difference is that I actually work in fraud detection, so I caught it immediately instead of discovering it weeks later when the damage was worse. I ended the call before she could continue her lecture about family loyalty and forgiveness. The messages kept coming throughout the day. Uncle Robert sent a long text about how Dad would be ashamed of me for tearing the family apart. Aunt Diane called Mom and spent an hour convincing her that I was overreacting and being cruel. Nicole's godmother posted a vague message on social media about how some people value money more than relationships. The campaign was comprehensive and effective. By noon I was cast as the villain in a family drama where Nicole's theft had somehow been transformed into my betrayal. Marcus Chin called during my lunch break. Your sister hired an attorney. Gerald Hutchins does a lot of work in white-collar defense. He sent over a letter this morning. What does it say? That you're engaging in a vindictive prosecution based on a misunderstanding of authorized card use. That your sister had implied permission based on previous access. That you're weaponizing the legal system because of long-standing sibling rivalry. He paused. It's actually well written. Hutchins is good at what he does. Can he make this go away? Not if we stay focused on the facts. Marcus's voice was calm and reassuring. Her attorney is trying to muddy the waters, make this about family dynamics instead of financial fraud. But the transaction records don't care about family history. The IP logs don't care about sibling rivalry. She used your card without explicit permission for personal expenses totaling $45,000. That's the crime, regardless of whatever emotional narrative her lawyer tries to construct. What's our next move? We push forward with the investigation. Detective Campos has already subpoenaed records from the travel vendors. We'll establish that Nicole made these bookings, that she knew you weren't aware of them, that she created a separate email to receive confirmation specifically to hide the transactions from you. Intent matters in fraud cases. We need to prove she acted deliberately to deceive. After we hung up, I checked Nicole's Instagram. She had posted a story an hour ago, a photo of herself looking tearful and vulnerable with text overlay that read, "When your own family turns against you during the hardest time of your life." The comments were flooded with support. "Stay strong, Queen. Family should lift you up, not tear you down. You deserve better." Her followers had no idea what she had actually done. They only knew the narrative she fed them, the carefully curated story of a woman being persecuted by a jealous sister. Jordan Hayes called that afternoon with news. "I found something interesting in your sister's financial records. She took out a personal loan 3 weeks ago for $20,000. Used her car as collateral. The loan funded some of her living expenses, but a significant portion went to paying a social media marketing firm to boost her engagement numbers artificially. She bought followers? Worse. She paid for a service that uses bots and fake accounts to inflate engagement metrics. Likes, comments, shares, all manufactured." Jordan sent over a document. The vendors she was pitching for sponsorship. They're getting smarter about detecting fake engagement. That's why her brand deals dried up. Companies realized her audience wasn't real. The revelation was almost sad. Nicole had been so desperate to maintain the illusion of success that she had spent thousands of dollars creating fake validation from fake people. Her entire career was built on a foundation of purchased engagement and borrowed credibility. The vacation she stole for wasn't just content creation. It was a last desperate attempt to generate authentic moments that might prove her influence was genuine. But instead of confronting the reality that her career model was unsustainable, she had chosen to commit fraud. Instead of getting a job or pivoting to something viable, she had decided that stealing from family was preferable to admitting failure. Mom called that evening, her voice thick with crying. "Emma, I need you to drop the charges against Nicole. Please. She's my daughter and I can't watch her go to jail. I'm your daughter too, Mom. And she stole from me. I know, but she's sorry. She came over today and cried for 2 hours. She promised she'll pay you back. She promised this will never happen again." Mom's desperation was palpable through the phone. "Can't we just handle this as a family? Do the police really need to be involved?" "Yes, they do. Because this isn't about one credit card charge. It's about a pattern of financial manipulation that's been escalating for months." I tried to keep my voice gentle but firm. "Mom, Nicole has taken over $30,000 from you since Dad died. Did you know that? She needed help." Mom's voice was defensive now. She was struggling. She's always struggling, but somehow she always has money for designer clothes and expensive wine and luxury lifestyle content. Where do you think that money comes from? I waited for her to answer, but she stayed silent. "It comes from you, Mom. And it was about to come from me in an even bigger way. If I hadn't caught this, if I hadn't frozen that card, she would have successfully stolen $45,000. What do you think she would have done next? She wouldn't steal from me." The denial in Mom's voice was heartbreaking. "I'm her mother. That's exactly why she would. Because you can't see what she's become. Because you forgive everything and she knows it." I felt exhausted suddenly, tired of fighting against the gravitational pull of family loyalty that excused every violation. "Mom, I love you. But I won't enable Nicole's theft to make you feel better about your relationship with her. She committed a crime. There have to be consequences. You sound just like your father." Mom's voice turned cold. He always thought everything could be solved with rules and consequences. He never understood that sometimes people need grace. Dad also never understood that grace without accountability is just permission to keep hurting people. I ended the call before the conversation could deteriorate further. The next morning Detective Campos requested a meeting. I drove to the police station during my lunch break, wondering what new development had emerged. She met me in a conference room with another detective, a younger man she introduced as Detective Mark Rivera. "We've been looking into your sister's financial activities more broadly." Detective Campos pulled out a file folder. "What we found is concerning. In addition to the fraud against you, There are 3 other instances of suspicious charges on your mother's credit cards over the past 4 months. Smaller amounts, 500 here, 800 there, but all processed from your sister's IP address. Mom never mentioned unauthorized charges. She probably doesn't know about them. Detective Rivera pulled up a spreadsheet on his laptop. The charges were for things your mother might reasonably purchase. Groceries, home goods, medical supplies. If your mother reviewed her statements, she might assume she made these purchases and forgot, or that they were legitimate household expenses. Nicole was stealing from Mom and disguising it as normal spending. The calculation required was chilling. She had studied Mom's purchasing patterns and replicated them just closely enough to avoid detection. There's more. Detective Campos looked uncomfortable. Your sister filed a police report yesterday claiming you have been financially abusing your mother and that you coerced your mother into giving you access to family accounts so you could steal inheritance money. That's insane. I don't have access to Mom's accounts. I've never asked for access. We know. We already verified with your mother's bank that you're not listed on any of her accounts. Detective Rivera closed his laptop. But your sister's counter-accusation tells us she's escalating. She's not just defending herself. She's going on offense. What does that mean for the case against her? It strengthens it, actually. Detective Campos smiled slightly. False reporting is its own crime. And the fact that she immediately tried to flip the script and accuse you of the exact thing she's doing? That shows consciousness of guilt. She knows she's in trouble, so she's trying to create confusion and cast doubt. Marcus Chen was less optimistic when I told him about Nicole's counter-accusation. This is going to get ugly, Emma. Your sister is fighting for her life, or at least the life she's constructed. She'll say anything, accuse anyone, burn any bridge to avoid consequences. What if Mom believes her? What if Nicole convinces her that I'm the one who's been stealing? Then your mother will have to decide whether she trusts evidence or emotion. Marcus's voice was pragmatic. We have transaction records, IP logs, bank statements, everything documented and verifiable. Your sister has tears and accusations. In court, evidence wins. In family dynamics, emotion often wins. You need to prepare yourself for the possibility that your mother may choose to believe Nicole regardless of what the facts show. That night I sat in my apartment reviewing the timeline Jordan had prepared, a comprehensive document showing every suspicious transaction across all family accounts for the past year. The pattern was unmistakable. Nicole had been systematically extracting money from family resources, small amounts at first but growing bolder and more brazen as she faced no consequences. The vacation was just the largest and most obvious theft in a series that had been ongoing for months. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You're going to regret this. I'm going to destroy your reputation at work. Everyone will know what kind of vindictive person you really are. The message was from Nicole, using a burner phone or a friend's number. I forwarded it to Marcus and Detective Campos without responding. Let her threaten. Let her rage and scheme and manipulate. Every action she took just added to the documentation of her character. Every threat became evidence of her willingness to harm rather than accept responsibility. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks out. Until then, I had to endure the whisper campaign Nicole was conducting through family channels, the social media posts painting her as a victim, the phone calls from relatives suggesting I was cruel and unforgiving. The pressure to drop the charges and pretend none of this happened was enormous and unrelenting. But dropping charges wouldn't make Nicole honest. It wouldn't protect Mom's remaining assets. It wouldn't teach Nicole that actions have consequences. It would just confirm her lifelong belief that charm and tears and family obligation would always shield her from accountability. So I didn't drop anything. I attended meetings with Marcus and Jordan, reviewed evidence with Detective Campos, and prepared for the moment when everything would be laid out in public view. Nicole thought she was fighting for her reputation and career. She didn't understand yet that both were already gone, casualties of her own choices and the digital trail she had left behind. The vacation she had stolen for would never happen. But the reckoning she had spent a lifetime avoiding was finally, inevitably, arriving. The Influencer Awards Gala wasn't supposed to be the venue for Nicole's downfall, but sometimes justice arrives with champagne and a red carpet. She had been nominated for Best Lifestyle Influencer weeks before the fraud investigation began, back when her manufactured engagement numbers still fooled enough people to make her seem relevant. The event was at the Fairmont Hotel, a glittering affair with local press coverage and several hundred attendees from Austin's digital marketing community. Nicole had posted about it relentlessly, treating her nomination like validation of everything she had built. Marcus Chen had suggested we attend. Your sister will be there expecting applause and recognition. It's the perfect moment to serve her with formal papers and let her industry see who she really is. I had hesitated, uncomfortable with the theatrical nature of public confrontation, but Jordan Hayes convinced me. She's built her entire persona on public performance. Let the exposure work against her for once. So I bought a ticket and arrived early, watching the influencers and marketers flow through the lobby in designer clothes and camera-ready makeup. Nicole arrived in a gold dress that probably cost more than she had in her actual bank account, her smile bright and practiced as she posed for photographers. She looked triumphant, like someone who believed she had successfully evaded consequences and emerged victorious. Mom was with her, dressed in a navy cocktail dress I recognized from Nicole's closet. My heart sank seeing her there, knowing she had chosen sides without fully understanding what that choice meant. They sat at a table near the stage, Nicole holding court with other influencers who laughed at her stories and validated her performance of success. Detective Campos was there too, dressed in civilian clothes and positioned near the exit. We had coordinated timing carefully. The warrant for Nicole's arrest on felony fraud charges had been signed that morning. We were waiting for the right moment, the one that would create maximum impact and minimum opportunity for Nicole to spin the narrative. The awards ceremony began with speeches about authentic content and meaningful engagement. The irony was thick enough to choke on. Nicole's category was scheduled for midway through the evening. When her name was called as a nominee, she stood and waved graciously, her smile never wavering. She didn't win. The award went to a lifestyle blogger who focused on sustainable living and budget-friendly content. Nicole's applause for the winner looked genuine, but I could see the tension in her shoulders, the recognition that her moment of validation had slipped away. During the cocktail reception that followed, I approached their table. Mom saw me first, her expression cycling through surprise, discomfort, and resignation. Nicole turned, her smile freezing when she registered my presence. Emma. What are you doing here? Same thing you are. Watching the show. I gestured to the elegant room, the networking influencers, the carefully curated atmosphere of manufactured success. Although I have to say, the irony of you being nominated for authentic content while facing fraud charges is pretty remarkable. Nicole's eyes flashed with anger. You need to leave. You're not welcome here. Actually, I have every right to be here. I bought a ticket. Unlike some people, I paid for things with my own money. I looked at Mom, whose face had gone pale. Mom, did Nicole tell you about the additional charges Detective Campos discovered? The ones where she stole from your credit cards and disguised the purchases as household expenses? That's a lie. Nicole stood abruptly, her voice rising enough to draw attention from nearby tables. You're making things up because you can't stand to see me succeed. The succeed part might be overselling it. You lost most of your brand deals, bought fake engagement to hide your declining relevance, and committed fraud to fund a vacation that would never happen. I pulled out my phone, showing Mom the financial analysis Jordan had prepared. These are your daughter's real numbers, Mom. Debt, fake followers, manufactured metrics, and systematic theft from family accounts. Mom stared at the screen, her hand trembling as she scrolled through the data. Nicole reached for the phone, but I pulled it back. Detective Campos approached then, her badge visible on her belt. Nicole Walsh, you're under arrest for felony financial fraud, identity theft, and filing a false police report. She began reading Miranda rights as two uniformed officers appeared from the lobby. The room had gone silent, hundreds of eyes watching as Austin's digital marketing community witnessed one of their nominated influencers being handcuffed at her own awards gala. This is entrapment. Nicole's voice cracked with panic. You planned this. You arranged this whole thing to humiliate me publicly. I documented your crimes and let the justice system handle the consequences. There's a difference. I looked at Mom, who was crying silently. I'm sorry it happened this way. But she wasn't going to stop. The vacation was just the beginning. They led Nicole out through the lobby, past the photographers who had captured her triumphant arrival now recording her disgrace. Her gold dress caught the light as she struggled briefly against the handcuffs before seeming to collapse into herself. The woman who had built a career on being watched and admired was finally getting the attention she craved, just not the kind she wanted. Mom followed them out, not looking at me. I stood alone at the table as the gala attempted to resume normalcy around the crater Nicole's arrest had created. My phone buzzed with notifications as the story spread across social media. Local news picked it up within minutes. Influencer arrested at awards ceremony for fraud. The comment sections filled with schadenfreude and moralizing about authentic living and the dangers of manufactured success. Marcus found me by the bar 20 minutes later. Well, that was dramatic. The preliminary hearing tomorrow should be straightforward. Her attorney will try to negotiate a plea deal once he realizes how much evidence we have. What happens to Mom? That's up to her. She can choose to see reality or she can keep pretending Nicole is a victim. Either way, your mother's accounts are protected now. Nicole won't have access to steal from her again. I left the gala and drove home through streets that felt different somehow, lighter without the weight of Nicole's secrets and my complicity in protecting her from consequences. The next morning's news coverage was extensive. Nicole's mugshot appeared alongside screenshots of her luxury lifestyle posts, creating a visual contrast between image and reality that no amount of filtering could fix. The plea deal came 3 days later. Nicole would plead guilty to felony fraud, serve 18 months in county jail, pay full restitution, and accept 5 years probation. Her attorney had advised her that fighting the charges would result in a longer sentence and federal tax fraud charges from her LLC misrepresentations. She took the deal. Mom didn't speak to me for 2 months. When she finally called, her voice was tired but clear. I removed Nicole from all my accounts. Changed all my passwords. Met with an estate attorney to protect my assets. She paused. You were right. About all of it. I just couldn't see it because I didn't want to. I know, Mom. I'm sorry it happened this way. I'm sorry it had to happen at all. But thank you for protecting me even when I fought against it. That's what real love looks like, I think. Not the kind that enables and excuses. The kind that holds boundaries even when it's hard. Nicole served her sentence and emerged with a very different kind of following. True crime enthusiasts and cautionary tale seekers who watched her apologetic content about financial fraud and family betrayal with morbid fascination. She got a job managing social media for a small nonprofit, work that paid modestly and kept her far from the luxury lifestyle content that had destroyed her. The cottage where Dad proposed to Mom is still in the family. The inheritance is protected. The credit cards are secure. And I learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for family is refuse to enable their worst instincts, even when that refusal looks like betrayal to everyone watching. The vacation Nicole stole for never happened. But the accountability she spent a lifetime avoiding finally arrived, dressed in handcuffs and public exposure. Justice isn't always satisfying or complete. But sometimes it's enough to know that truth matters more than image, that evidence outlasts charm, and that consequences eventually find everyone, even the people we love most. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.